Hi, my inspiration for today is a quote from Zig Ziglar. And Zig Ziglar once said that if you are not willing to learn, no one can help you. And if you are determined to learn, then no one can stop you. And that is my message to you as first time authors as it relates to your being successful is that if you are determined to learn something new and keep learning as you are promoting your book or getting out there and becoming more visible, then of course you will be a success. And I want to welcome you to Clayton Communication and Publishing, our Facebook online newsletter, where we turn your stories into books. I am Coach Blondie, your host, and today I want to talk about creating activities to sell more books as a self-published author. I remember writing my first book, and it I had no idea what I was going to do with it, but I had heard this prophetic utterance when I was a child, and I found myself I found that it was being fulfilled in my life. And I had absolutely no idea of how to write, but I set about doing it, and with the help of the Lord, I was able to get everything penned down that needed to be said for that particular book. And when I got done with it, my thoughts were, now what? You've given me this task to do, but now what do I do with it? And I just had this idea in my mind that, okay, you gave it to me, and surely you're going to make it work, God. But I found out that it was going to take my effort as well. And I was thinking it was just going to magically fly off the shelf. And of course, I was in for a rude awakening. The key is determination. So, what if you didn't do it right when you started out? It's okay. You got it done. And so now you just move on to the next phase. So it may take you a little longer than most because it's a learning curve, but nevertheless, you can still do it. And I took that and thought about what I needed to do next. And I began to realize, and remember, I told you that I was very shy about, I've said that to you in previous videos. And suddenly I found myself in this speaker training class. And part of the training was that we had to create talks from somewhere. And so I chose to create my talks from my book. And that's the beginning. And surprisingly, they started buying my book. And from there, I began to do publishing workshops. And then I branched off into doing more of the healing workshops. And although sometimes my publishing workshops ended up really being healing workshops. And what I would do is the beginning of the workshop, I would just kind of introduce my book and I would share a little bit about what was in my book and how I came to write my book and just started creating events, event after event after event, where my book was on display and people just started buying it. And then I did some the physical workshops came to a halt because of COVID, but I noticed that they've gradually been coming back for the last year or so. So, but right now I'm doing more stuff online as opposed to physical. I do some support groups, physical. I, I do some support groups where I'm physically present, but I tend to do Facebook, like right what I'm doing right now, and I also do radio and podcasting. And those are my choices, and you can make your own choices. You do have other social media. You have Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and probably several more that you could use. But you need to find out what your audience is. And I know my audience is the age group from about 46 to about 64. And those are the ones that listen to what I have to say and that I tend to target. And on Facebook, you can host workshops, you can host courses, you can host groups where you can get a chance to talk and promote if you choose to. You can create your own group and promote. So, how do I conduct my talks and my workshop? What is my focus? Well, it doesn't matter whether I'm live on Facebook or doing something on Facebook or in person. Let's say that I'm doing a publishing workshop. I decide on the date, the time, the location, and whether or not I want to charge. And sometimes I charge, sometimes I do it for free. If I do it for free, I usually will have a high ticket item I might offer to my service, or I might offer a publishing package because I've become a publisher as a result of it. And that has worked well. And then I would move on to announcing it and inviting people. I might use the local newspaper. If I'm doing it free, I might put it in a local newspaper in a free section in the community section in the local newspaper, or I might use Eventbrite or radio or whatever is available at the time that fits within my budget. And once I got all that set, now I decide what am I going to talk about. And well, of course, I usually would talk about have it already set what I'm going to talk about when I do the announcements, my announcement by flyers or whatever. And let's say for this particular, just for as an example to help you, I was going to talk about how to publish a book or how to write your story, or there's a book inside you. Are you ready to get started? That's kind of how I started out. And once we got all that out the way, the workshop starts. I would talk to you or talk to the participants, open up and maybe discuss why they are there, what do they hope to gain, what do they hope to walk away with, and then I would share my book. Always share my book up front or somewhere in the middle or toward the end. And I would tell them a little bit about why I wrote my story and how I began how it was the kickstarted my publishing process, and let them know that it's available. And I usually would have a table somewhere in the room that they could look at not only my book but whatever else that I have to offer for that day. And then I would begin to tell them what I was going to tell them from book idea to finished product and into the market. And included in that would be I would share with help them to understand what they need to do in order to finalize their book, like proofreading and editing and that kind of thing. Then the title. How do you come up with your titles? And I would talk about titles can be making titles more benefit driven, so that reader doesn't have to guess what you're going to talk to them about, that they already know based upon your title. And I would discuss covers with them, different types of covers. I would show them different types of covers and give them resources for where they can find those. As they're getting ready to go to print or they've finished all of that, then I would talk to them about formatting. What does formatting look like? You have your page numbers, you have your table of contents, you have your chapters, all of that. You might have a copyright page, and those are the things that need to be completed before you go to final print. I would even give them resources on where to find these services if they don't know how to format, or if they don't know how to do covers or whatever, or don't want to do it. I give them some resources. And the highlight of the publishing workshop would be I would take a piece of paper and I would fold it in half. I have several sheets here. Let me grab one. It would look something like this. I would have about 5 sheets like that, and I would fold it, it would already be folded into 5 sheets, and they would be given that. And what they would end up doing with that is I would then give them a prompt. I would say, write about an event that in your life where you that changed your life in some way. And they would write about that. I'd give them a few minutes to do that, maybe 20 minutes. And then I would talk to them about, okay, look back over that, what you've written, and summarize what you would put on it as a title, and then they would do that. And after that, I would say, okay, you have some crayons there because I would have placed the crayons there with them when they picked up the booklet. I said, now design your cover. So I would give them a few minutes to do that. So we'd spend probably about a half hour for them to do all of that. And then what I would do is I would say to them, okay, well, I would have somebody staple it for them. And then after it's stapled, then what I would do is I would say, okay, now that's your book. That's the beginning of your book. I'm sorry, those just fell, those, something just fell. I apologize for that. And then the crowning moment would be to have them to come up and read what they have written. And that is sometimes the part that tends to, for me, or for them, turns into that healing moment because for the first time, sometimes they're sharing certain events in their life and it can get very emotional. And after that, then I would just open up the floor for questions about whatever my topic was. In this case, it would be publishing, and they would get to ask questions. And it's an opportunity for them to kind of process all that's taken place, especially the emotional part, and then go from there. So you can create your workshop or talks, but what I would suggest that you do, always create it from your book. And I make it a habit to do that. Create it from your book. Because what are you trying to do? You're trying to sell your book. So why would you be talking about something else when you need to talk about something that's in your book? And that's all that I have for today. I do hope that something that I've said might be a trigger for you or help you to, or maybe it's the answer to what you have been looking for. And if it was of any value to you, please share it with your friends and relatives. Or if you have any publishing questions, feel free to send me an email at coach23blondie@gmail.com. Until next time, Coach Blondie, signing off. Keep the faith.